Welcome to the Hope for the Animals podcast, a project of compassionate living. I'm your host, Hope Bohannick, and you can learn more about compassionate living, our other projects, and also how you can get in touch with me by going to our website. The links are in the show notes. So, today we're going to learn about the National Animal Rights Day. I've known about this day of action. I've participated in it and also spoke actually at a few of the National Animal Rights Days over the years. This is pre-pandemic times. It's a powerful mass mobilization, day of action type of event. And today we have the man behind the National Animal Rights Day curtain, Aylam Orian. And we're going to get to hear all about his important work. We also get into a discussion about strategy in the interview and the importance of grassroots action and mass mobilization. I've been thinking a lot about the animal rights movement's strategy lately and learning all that I can. I listened to a really interesting presentation recently from Animal Think Tank in the UK. They're a group in the UK. Their founding director, Leila Kassam, was giving a presentation that I listened to, like a webinar, about some of their latest findings. And Animal Think Tank, they're doing really extensive, like, focus groups on what works, studying what worked in the past for social justice issues. And one thing that she said that I found really interesting was how important mass mobilization and large scale protest and events are to social justice movements. And that's kind of the piece of the social justice puzzle that we're missing or that we don't do enough of as an animal rights movement. So Alam's work and National Animal Rights Day and events like that are so very important. So, just some quick announcements before we get into the interview today. If you are in the Portland area, I will be speaking in person, which is so rare these days, but I will actually be speaking in person in Portland, Portland, Oregon, on Sunday, April 21st. And that's going to be at a potluck for Northwest Veg. Northwest Veg used to do the Veg Fest up there, the Portland Veg Fest. I believe that the potluck is at like 5 p.m. and I'll be speaking after at 6:15 or something. I'm going to talk about my Humane Hoax project and the book that came out last year. If you're around the Portland area, I hope you'll join me. Let me know that you listen to the podcast. I love meeting podcast listeners out in the wild, in the real world. So it's Sunday, April 21st in Portland, and you can get the details from a link in the show notes. The other announcement is that our Humane Hoax Chicken webinar is going to be coming up on May 4th. This one is a webinar, so everyone can join us. May 4th is International Respect for Chickens Day. And this year we are dedicating our chicken-focused webinar to the late Karen Davis, who died last year. She created that day of action and, of course, was the founder and president of United Poultry Concerns, where I worked for a decade and where this podcast was born. I, wow, I really can't believe that this will be the first International Respect for Chickens Day without Karen. So we are dedicating this year's Humane Hoax Chicken webinar on May 4th to Karen, and we're going to have a special segment of video tributes in her honor. So you can check out our lineup of speakers and more details and register for free on our humanehoax.org website. There's a link in the show notes, of course. And as always, if you are listening to this announcement after that date, the day of May 4th, 2024, the video recordings of all the speakers and all our past Humane Hoax Chicken webinars can be found on Compassionate Living's YouTube page. Okay, so let's now get into our conversation for the day and get inspired for some big day of action mobilization. I hope you enjoy it. All right, today we have Aylam Orian. Aylam is a Hollywood actor, filmmaker, and animal rights activist. With his nonprofit, Our Planet, Theirs Too, he has established the National Animal Rights Day, a day of moving events dedicated to animals and their rights, which are held simultaneously in major cities every June, and they're now in 50 countries worldwide. He's also the creator of the Declaration of Animal Rights, the ultimate document that details the rights all animals have as living beings on this planet, which has now been translated into 23 languages. He's also an actor, and he has appeared in numerous known films and TV shows like 30 Rock, Code Black, NCIS, Los Angeles, The Informer, Strargate Origins, and he'll be seen next in an upcoming TV show about the Holocaust called We Are the Lucky Ones. Welcome to the podcast, Aylam.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, before we get into all that you are doing, all that you have going on for the animals, I believe that all vegans are superheroes, and superheroes often have an interesting origin story. So, let's hear your vegan origin story. Why and when did you go vegan?
So I first went vegetarian. I was in 2006, I was living in New York City and was studying was really into yoga and was studying Indian philosophy, Vedanta, and Tibetan Buddhism.
Yeah.
It was my Vedanta teacher from India that basically said, he was, of course, vegetarian, and he said, look at what length human beings will go to just for the pleasure of their taste buds. Basically, they would see a lamb or some other animal and just think, oh, I'm hungry. Let's take this animal's life. And I always loved animals, but never made the connection. And what my teacher told me really kind of planted a seed in my mind. All of a sudden I started thinking about, yeah, he's right. I claim to love animals, but then I'm eating them. And I really am ashamed to say I never really thought about it before. So he kind of planted the seed in my mind, and then kind of by happenstance, all these things started happening. I was just walking one day in Upper Manhattan. There's a big church there, and I saw, oh, there's some festival going on there, and I went in, and it was this kind of celebration they do for Saint Francis, the guardian of the animals. So some churches do kind of a celebration for that, and this specific church had some kind of tables from different groups. One of the groups that had a table was Farm Sanctuary, the
Oh,
big,
yeah.
wonderful sanctuary in upstate New York. And they had leaflets called Why Vegan? And again, this kind of was the second thing that kind of cemented what my teacher started in my mind. I saw the photos of animals in farms, and I saw, it's not super graphic, but I saw for the first time how animals are raised in the modern industrial world. So I decided I have to go vegetarian. I'm not willing to do this anymore. And I remember telling myself, I don't care if I get sick, if my health deteriorates, I'm not gonna participate in the suffering or taking the life of any other animal. And of course, I didn't get sick; I got healthier.
Yeah.
But in the coming years, up until, actually, I'm ashamed to say, it took me 5 years till 2011. I learned about the dairy and the egg industries, and then I decided, okay, I got to take it a step further and go vegan.
So you established this nonprofit, Our Planet, Theirs Too. And through that nonprofit, you do this National Animal Rights Day. And it's now grown to be a huge event. It happens in over 50 countries. Tell us about this National Animal Rights Day. What inspired you to create it?
Yeah, so again, since 2006, I was kind of volunteering for different groups in New York City, Farm Sanctuary. I went to some PETA protests, Mercy for Animals. I was becoming aware, learning what kind of activism is out there, from the most kind of innocent leafleting in the streets to the PETA meat trays in the middle of Times Square in Manhattan. I remember one of those protests. So I was kind of learning what fits me, what is my style, what do I want to do, where do my skills fit the best. I didn't find myself in any of these things. And then in 2010, because I'm a filmmaker also, I went to the Cannes Film Festival in France. And on the way back, I traveled through Madrid, Spain. And I saw a group of activists standing in the middle of one of the busiest squares of Madrid, in a line with laptops hanging on their bodies, faces not covered like today some groups do. They basically made eye contact with you, with the audience, with the public, and they just stood there silently, and the laptops spoke for them. The laptops were showing footage of, slaughter and other graphic footage of how we treat animals. And this really blew me away because it was at the time very new. I didn't see any video demo like that before, definitely not in New York City. And just the fact that they were standing there looking at you silently, nobody was pointing a finger, nobody was shouting anything, no slogans, there was no, banners or anything like that. Just a group of people looking you in the eye and showing you the truth on their body. That really blew me away. And I came to they had a table on the side, and I came to them and I said, guys, who are you? That's amazing. That's what I wanted to do, or that's what I was looking for. I live in New York City. Can I bring it over? Turns out they were Animal Equality, or Igualdad Animal at the time, which is an amazing group till this very day. And at the time, they weren't ready to kind of branch out to the US. Over the years, they did. They actually, two of their three founders moved to the US, and now they're in the US, Sharon and Jose. But at the time, they weren't ready, but they gave me their blessing. Hey, please do similar things in New York, and this is how we do it, blah, blah, blah. And when I came back to New York, I collected some of my activist buddies, and I said, guys, it's amazing. Let's do this. So long story short, we started doing these video demos in New York City, in Union Square. Laptops didn't work for some reason in the New York light, so we schlepped a big old-fashioned TV, not even a flat screen, like a big TV. Somehow plugged it and started showing, videos like Meet Your Meat, the PETA video and other videos to the New York public. And it was effective. It was new. And we did not only in Union Square, we also did it in Grand Central Station, the big bus and train station. We would get permits and do it there. And after a while of doing these demos, we realized it's effective, it's great. You show people the immediate truth without any barriers or any need to even talk a word. But it's not as effective as it could be, because we're reaching 30, 50 people a day. And then Igualdad Animal did, for what they still do, for December 10, they did this big event where they got like 400 activists to Plaza del Sol in Madrid. And each one of them, again, all standing in unison, standing silently, but each one of them was holding a body of an animal, just showing the audience, showing the public this animal, and non-verbally saying, look at this is the results of your lifestyle choices. When we saw that, they blew us away again. And I said, guys, we got to do this in New York City. So I got a meeting of all the heads of all the groups in New York City. And I still have the photos from that meeting in 2011. And I got him to a meeting. I said, guys, can we collaborate? Look at these guys in Spain. Can we collaborate instead of all working separately and sometimes fighting and all that? Can we collaborate and get 500 people to do a big event like that in New York? And most of them, they agreed, and they all said, yeah, let's do it. Over time, this dropped, that dropped. This didn't like working with that one. This said, each group had their own, we only do farm animals. We only do sea animals. Eventually, it was left to me and an older lady to organize the whole thing, but we did it. And this event we organized, we didn't have deceased animals at the time because we thought, oh, that's insane. Nobody in the US will even let us do it. And we basically did a funeral service or memorial service for animals. But then also we somehow decided, let's add this other element. Let's celebrate the wins that we're having every year. Let's celebrate more vegan options, in stores and everywhere. So we did this big event, and we actually, for the celebration part, we had tables from about 30 groups. So that was very successful. And we liked it so much, and it was so impactful for the community that we decided, let's start repeating this. And how should we call this event that we just did? And I came up with the name, the National Animal Rights Day. And that's kind of how it started. But, to answer the question about the deceased animals. So the whole idea of holding the deceased animals is definitely not to shock anyone, not to scare anyone. It's almost the opposite. The idea is to create a safe space for the public to actually see how the animals that they eat or consume in different ways, how these animals look like. Beautiful, clean, cradled in one's arms. People won't go to a farm or slaughterhouse to see how the animals they eat look like. Most people in their lifetime never see a baby pig or a baby cow or a chicken or a turkey in their lifetime. They're just seeing a piece of meat on their plate. They never make the connection, like I never made it, because they never see the actual animal. Bringing the actual animals, the actual victims out and showing them to the public in a very dignified and nice way, but showing them to the public directly That's one of the purposes. We don't take any animals that was killed. We don't want to give anybody an incentive to kill animals for us, God forbid. So we don't take animals that were killed or harmed anyway, and we don't pay for them. You know.
Yeah, I understand. And just to give people a visual, I don't know if someone hasn't seen this, hasn't been to one of these events or seen a picture. So what happens is the activists are just kind of standing or in a procession of some kind, very quietly cradling and holding these deceased animals and kind of looking at them, and it's you don't really interact. It's almost, well, it's funeral like you said, like
Yeah.
memorial like,
Yeah. So
maybe
it's basically,
painting a picture.
yeah, it's like an open casket funeral for people.
Ah.
So again, from the minute we become the guardians of these bodies of these animals, we take the best care of them. We clean them. We give them a name. We write their story, where they came from, what they endured until they died, how they died, and basically we bring them to the ceremony. We hand them to the people. People hold them, like you said, cradling them in their arms in a very beautiful way, like you would hold your human baby or your cat or your dog. And that's part of the message. We basically what the audience, the unsuspecting crowd, seeing these installations, if you will, in the middle of their streets or public squares, they're seeing an army of people standing in unison in a what we call a grid, a nice formation like a triangle or a square. Each one cradling an animal, cradling a baby cow, a chicken, a turkey, a baby pig, a goat, a fish, a lobster. So basically, all animals that humans are consuming in some way or other. The way we humans hold them, it's almost like the religious Christian pietà, images of Mother Mary holding the body of Jesus. The
Hmm.
way we hold them is very important because it communicates tenderness and love. And look, a human can love a baby pig or a baby cow just like you would love a human baby or a cat or a dog. Long story short, this whole visual message, what it does is, first of all, we commemorate these animals. We give them, like I said, an open casket funeral. We give them a funeral service. We tell their name. We tell their story instead of them dying anonymously in some terrible facility. Their story, their name is told to the public. But also, like I said, we show these animals to the public. We expose the public to how these animals look like. And also, in a nonverbal way, presenting them like this to the public, we're telling the public, this is the direct results of your lifestyle. How do you feel about it and what do you want to do about it?
Hmm.
Ideally, the ultimate goal is to feel something in their heart. We want them to have an emotional reaction. And that's what these events achieve. We do create an emotional reaction in people. They see the animals, they see how we hold them, they hear the speeches, they hear the songs, they hear the stories of the name of the animal, their story, how they grew up, how they were raised, how they perished. And many of them cry, they have an emotional reaction, they feel something, they have the same reaction that I had when I heard my teacher, or I saw the images, like, wow, I completely wasn't aware that this is what I'm doing. I can't be a part of this anymore. I want to change my life. And then the second part of the event, which is the celebration, also function as an educational, informational part. And that's where, if somebody had this emotional reaction in the ceremony, this is where we can give you all the information on how to go vegan, how to eliminate animals from your lifestyle, how to make this transition. And we also, it's actually a happy celebration. So they see examples of vegan athletes and vegan musicians and vegan, known speakers and celebrities talking about the vegan lifestyle. So they really get all the information they need, but also see how easy and fun it is.
Yeah, it is very emotional. I have been to a few of these events. I've actually spoken at a couple of these events in
Oh,
Northern
amazing.
California over the years. Yeah.
Yes.
And the image that comes to my mind is when one of the activists is holding these animals, they can have a very
Mm.
deep emotional reaction and will have just tears
Yeah.
streaming down their face while they're holding and cradling and looking at this animal. It's really powerful. So really interesting idea
Yeah.
to
And
do.
yeah, you're right. We learned over the years that the events also have a value for the community.
Yeah.
We as animal rights activists, we don't get too many chances to mourn together. We all get sad on our own and depressed, opening Instagram and Facebook and seeing again the barrage of images and videos, right, that never stop of animal abuse.
Yeah.
But we never get a chance to cry together and mourn together, like in a funeral. So we found that the ceremony provides that to the community, but also we don't get too many chances to celebrate together. And and pat each other on the back. Good work, good activism. Thank you for what you're doing. So we found that the second part of the event functions as that. So we really found that the community loves these events because it gives the community a value. We also bring everybody together. All groups are welcome.
So, what are some of the countries that you have this event in that we might be surprised about?
We have them, in all the major countries like US, Canada, UK, Australia, all the major countries, Europe. But we had them in Beirut, Lebanon. Really nice events. Very dedicated activists there. We had them in Korea. We had one event in China. It's actually forbidden to do any kind of this activism in public, but we managed to do a little event there.
Mm.
We have them in Japan. We have them in New Zealand, former Yugoslavia, a few countries over in that region that has known a lot of violence and unrest. We managed to do it there. We had events in Congo, Africa, and in Nigeria. This year, we'll have a first time event in South Africa.
Wow.
Faroe Islands, the terrible, renowned Danish island where they kill the whales. We had a kind of smallish event for the first time ever last year.
Mm. Wow. Okay. Fantastic. So this year's will be coming up in June, correct? Do you want to say anything about this year's or if anyone is interested in getting involved?
Yes, it's always on the first Sunday of June, coincidentally or not, 1 week after Memorial Day for people in the US, because we like to think that these events are a mixture of Memorial Day and Independence Day for animals.
Mm.
And the purpose is that every country will have it this day of their own and continue commemorating it even after all animals are liberated. Just like any Memorial Day, you want to continue commemorating what happened in the past. So that's the ultimate idea, that every country will have this Memorial Day / Independence Day for animals once a year. But as of now, as we're still introducing it to new countries, it's always on the same day, first Sunday of June. So this year it's Sunday, June 2nd. If anybody is looking for the closest event to them, go to our website, thenard.org. So the NARD.org. You'll see a map of all the events. If there's no event in your city or anywhere close to you and you would like to start one with us, please get in touch with us on the website. Go to the contact page. You'll see all the regions of the world. Each one has its own email. Contact us and we will be glad to work with you and guide you through the process. We have a manual. We have all the instructions that you need. We'll guide you through the process of how to do this event with us. And yeah, we'd love to have you.
We will definitely put a link to that website in the show notes. So if anyone's interested, just go to the show notes and check out if there is an event near you. And if not, maybe you can start one. That'd be awesome. Yep. Yeah, great. Okay, well, I also wanted to ask you about another project that you have, and that is called the Declaration of Animal Rights. It's a document, a declaration similar to the Declaration of Independence, but the Declaration of Animal Rights. And I'm going to read just a little bit here from your website, from the actual proclamation. It says, "We hereby proclaim that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all beings are created equal and have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Very reminiscent of our Declaration of Independence. And then it goes on to say, "Therefore, all animals have the same natural right to exist as any other living being. All animals have the right to live free, to live their lives on their own terms as intended by nature. All animals have the right to eat, sleep, be physically and so psychologically comfortable, mobile, healthy, safe, on and on." So you get the idea, but it is extensive and goes on from there. So I am really curious about this document, and I know that you've had a lot of people sign it all over the world. Tell us about the Declaration of Animal Rights.
Yeah, so for that first NARD event in New York in 2011, I really, again, don't remember how I came up with this idea, but I was aware that over the past few decades, there's been all these other declarations that different groups were trying to promote. Even at the level of the UN, there was a Universal Declaration of Animal Welfare, and there was an older Universal Declaration of Animal Rights. So while these were very blessed endeavors, they all, none of them was vegan. None of them was abolitionist. Like some of them even included paragraphs that said, "Oh, if you have to kill an animal, it should be done in this way and that way."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
So I always kind of resented that idea, and I said, there's got to be a document that is fully vegan, fully abolitionist, that really says no killing of no animal, full stop,
Yeah.
and all animals deserve all the rights to be happy and free, just like every human on this planet.
Yeah.
So somehow I got the idea. Let's write our own declaration. Let's write our own declaration that will replace these old declarations, and let's read it out loud and sign it at this first NARD event. And that's what we did. Me and Zelda, my co-organizer, wrote it together. The first paragraph, I have to say, is anonymous. Nobody knows who wrote that very first paragraph. We tweaked it a little bit, but we wrote the rest. And we put it on, again, not thinking too much, we put it on a big scroll of paper just for everybody to be able to see it. And we read it out loud, and people liked it so much that they immediately wanted to sign it. So we had some markers there, and people started signing this actual
Mm.
big scroll of paper.
Wow.
And then we realized, wow, yeah, why don't we do it every year in every country around the world where we have a NARD event, and people like it so much, let's give them a blank paper and let them, express themselves. And people, would sign, people write poems, make little drawings, letting their emotions after this whole ceremony and after reading the declaration, which is usually at the end of the opening ceremony, let them express themselves about what they think about this document and about animal rights, the rights of animals in general. And again, that we found that people love it. It's a great idea. And since then, we do it at every NARD event around the world. And we then ask our organizers there to send us those blank pieces of paper that by then are all filled with these signatures and poems. And now we keep adding them to the original scroll. So I have the scroll in my house. It's huge. It's about half a mile long by now. It's
Wow.
insane because it includes all these pieces from all the way from Taiwan and Japan and India and the UK. And
Wow.
so it's in a million languages. It's beautiful. And the idea is this physical scroll one day should be in some museum under a glass, and you could come there and see, oh, this is the signature of my grandfather, in
Mm.
in 2012 signed it in Hong Kong or whatever. So that's kind of the physical scroll of the declaration. It's on its own like an artistic creation by now.
Mm.
But then the declaration itself, the text itself, we put it online. People can also sign it without going to the NARD events. But the idea with this one is, it's like you said, it's modeled after the American Declaration of Independence and also the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And the idea is that one day, just like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the non-legally binding agreement that was adopted by the UN, based on which countries are obliged to enact legally binding laws to protect human rights. And some of them are doing a better job at it than others, but that's the idea, at least.
Yeah.
We want the same to happen for animals. So there should be a universally accepted document declaring all the rights animals should have. And then based on that, countries will enact actual laws to protect the rights of animals. So it's a very lofty goal of ours to be adopted by the UN at the same status of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but that's the goal. And we're just starting this process of getting there. But I hope that one day we will be able to get there, and there will be a Universal Declaration of Animal Rights, and just like the human rights. And and
Yeah.
all countries will have laws protecting the rights of animals.
Mm. Well, I love that. And you've got to start somewhere, and
Right.
just to say it's a lofty goal. Well, we need to write these things down. And if you can't envision what you want, it makes it hard for it to come to fruition.
Right.
So this is something that is concrete, it's written out, and something that we can use as a roadmap to
Exactly.
the world we want. So I love that. It's very
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
And and some people even people in the animal rights movement kind of disagree about this and that, or people say, hey, but what about spay and neuter? Because the declaration says all animals have the right to decide what to do with their lives as they see fit, including
Yeah.
procreating, right? Having offspring. It's their right. We don't have the right to take it away from them. But sure, spay and neuter and all that, we humans have created a terrible problem of cats and dogs mostly in our streets. So temporarily, we have to restrict this right to solve this problem that we have created. But in the ultimate, in the utopia version of things,
Yeah.
yeah, all animals should have their own agency and their own decision over their own bodies.
Yes.
So it's a utopian text. I know it's hard to live by, but like exactly like you said, that's the beacon towards which we want to strive. And I think one day we will be able to live by it.
Yeah. Really, really important and powerful document. I'm really glad
Thank
that
you.
it exists, that you all created that. Really wonderful.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about something that actually kind of brought us together.
Mhm.
And that is our mutual concern for the direction that the animal advocacy movement has kind of taken in this last decade or so, with a real emphasis more and more towards incremental animal welfare.
Mm.
And, and this is kind of getting into strategy and tactics in the movement and where we should put our energy, how we should do the work we do. And I'll start by also saying kind of a disclaimer that nobody really knows. I mean,
Right.
nobody knows, and I think you agree with me on this. We've talked about it, that no one is sure about what the best strategy is, what the best way forward is. But of course, we're all making educated guesses. We, as activists, being in this for a long time and doing the work for a long time, we see what works, what doesn't. We feel what works, what doesn't. So, we can make educated guesses. So I'm just kind of want to put that disclaimer in there that, nobody really knows, and we're not claiming that we absolutely know. However, we certainly have ideas about it. And also, to something that I don't know if everyone that's listening understands or realizes, but I'd say most of our energy and the jobs and dollars in the big organizations, it is shifted now to welfare reforms.
Mm.
And these, reforms like shifting the industry to cage-free systems, or finding ways for, the industry to reduce suffering, but not necessarily with a vegan message, or with even a reduction message. So anyway, that's kind of the picture of it. I'd love to get your perspective on this and what you feel about this and what you feel are best strategies for the movement.
So yeah, I've been having the same impression as you of what's happening in the movement. When I started, and again, our gods were animal equality and PETA and Mercy for Animals and all these groups that did all these amazing street activism, grassroots things to
And
again,
purely vegan education.
yeah,
Yeah.
purely vegan education,
Yeah.
including, again, like now there's Anonymous of the Voiceless video demos. Again, we did it in 2010 in New York. But Mercy for Animals were showing videos back then in the streets, paying people $1 to watch a 1 minute video. And everybody was trying, all the groups were trying all these kinds of street activism. And then as I got into it and started an official nonprofit and became what you call an executive director of a nonprofit, and got into funding and trying to source, pay for what we do, then I started learning, wow, there's actually this whole world of what we call animal welfare that is backed with a lot of money. There's actually a lot of individuals and foundations that fund the animal welfare movement, and that's almost like a different movement. That's basically a
Yeah.
movement that is very much influenced by the concept of, people might heard, effective altruism. And according to that concept, alleviating suffering, it's much easier to alleviate the suffering of trillions of animals by providing them a bit more space in their cages or just better conditions. That would alleviate more suffering than, let's say, completely liberating 10,000 animals. So if you give better conditions, better living conditions in farms and in slaughterhouses to trillions of animals, that will alleviate more suffering than completely liberating a smaller amount of animals. And really, all the big groups and many new groups are coming out abide by this concept. And apparently also because there's a lot of money in that realm, many of the groups nowadays, even those that started as hardcore grassroots abolitionist vegan groups, are all latching onto this welfare kind of vehicle, because governments and corporations are easier to listen to that message than basically telling them stop using animals, stop abusing animals altogether. It's easier for them to give a few more inches of cage space to their chickens than completely, liberating their chickens. It's more palpable for the public, more palpable for governments, for corporations. There's a lot of money in it, behind it. And, it's not that I think it's completely wrong thinking. As it was explained to me, these big groups are thinking, while we work at the same time or some of them, while we work for animal liberation, let's at least better the conditions of animals that are suffering now. So I can understand that. But on the other hand, there are partners in this dialogue, which is governments and corporations and the public. If they think, oh, then we've done our job if we gave a few more inches of cages, or we bettered the conditions of the animals that we then kill, or we made them grass fed or range free range, or all these organic, all these labels that, as you know, are very misleading. That makes people and governments and corporations stop there and not see the ultimate goal, which is no, not using these animals in any way.
Yeah.
So that's it, I think, the danger that we all see, and I think we agree on that. It will stop there. It will make everybody complacent. It will make everybody feel good about their conscience, and we lose the ultimate goal of completely liberating these animals and not use them in any way.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and also, sorry, very
Yeah.
very.
Go ahead.
The other thing is, it really also makes the life of all the animal rights groups that are still doing the work in the trenches, in the street, the vegan outreach, that what we do, what all the grassroots animal rights groups are doing around the world. It makes our life very difficult because first of all, we don't have money. There's no money in our space that is being, funneled to fund what we do. All the big money goes towards these welfare corporations, government kind of work. And also, we're fighting against, if everybody becomes complacent about, oh look, but we approved Prop 12 or whatever that gives animals 3 more inches of cages, then we're good. So then what are you crying about? We've done our job. We're all for animal welfare. We want to better their conditions. We're doing it. So what is there to still shout about?
Yeah.
So it really makes our work, again, for total animal liberation, very hard, sometimes impossible.
Yeah. 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 It's very frustrating. And the effective altruism that you were talking about, just to kind of expand on that. And like you said, it makes a certain degree of sense when you hear it. It certainly sounds good. Yes, let's relieve the suffering of the most number of animals that we can.
Mm.
That's what it is on paper. And sure, of course, everyone wants to do that. We want to relieve the most suffering that we can. But when you put that into practice, when you put that into practical application, then we're talking about things like right now, what is happening mostly is cage-free operations. And so now someone can say, an organization can say, oh, we're going to affect 100,000 chickens, or up to numbers in the billions, like you said. We're going to affect so many chickens by working with these companies to go cage free. So give us your millions of dollars so we can hire a bunch of people to help do this, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what the key word in there is affect. We're going to affect this many chickens, right? Well, affect in what way? Is it really alleviating their suffering? Is it really beneficial enough to put all our millions of dollars and effort into it? I don't think so. I have personally been to both cage-free and battery cage operations, and those cage-free operations can be horrible.
Right.
They're still deep-beaked. They're still going to slaughter at a young age. They're still living in ammonia-filled buildings and living, monotonous, horrible lives. To me, there's a real danger because the welfare reforms, it doesn't address kind of who we are. It basically just changes what we do, what labels we reach for, but it doesn't change who we are as a people, right? So, changing the emotion behind the behavior, I think, is so important. And vegan education addresses that. Grassroots activism in the street addresses that. Welfare reforms do not. And another part of it that's very frustrating to me is that, welfare reforms are reforms, right? And the animal agriculture industry, I believe, is unreformable
Mm.
because there is no industry without animal exploitation, right? The
Right.
commodification of animals' bodies is inherent to that industry. So you can't really reform that industry. You
Right.
have to dismantle and build something else, build something different, do plant farming only, right?
We can all see that even the attempts that have been made over years now to, yeah, modify, just, we're talking about slight modification in California. I think it was Prop 12. It only spoke about giving, I forget what it was, like giving pigs 1 foot of extra space and chickens 3 inches, like
So
minute things
minimal.
like that.
Yeah.
Even that is still fought by the animal agriculture industry in courts, in appeals. It's years now. I remember signing that prop. I even actually did some signature collecting for it at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's still not passing. They're still fighting it. Even those little wins that the animal welfare movement is claiming to have, they take decades to implement.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they're going to be implemented in most cases. And as you know, some of these corporations that even sign on to like the better welfare practices, they're still, they're still fighting it. Many of them haven't, they signed, but they didn't keep their word, haven't kept their word. As you know, a big organization, I was doing a big campaign just to kind of convince one of them to keep their word and basically adhere to what they themselves committed to.
Right.
Governments and even corporations that agreed to some degree of welfare, many of them are backing out of it. It's very hard to enforce it. It's very hard to convince them to keep their word. And so we're at their mercy. So it's not really like the millions of dollars that go into paying salaries of people working in the animal welfare. It's not like it's working really well. It's not happening. These welfares are not really taking place. So it's almost like that's the other thing. All these millions of dollars that were spent on trying to make that happen, like if you give me and you and all these grassroots organizations those millions of dollars, we would have animal liberation in 10 years. I really believe that,
Well,
because we would use this money to reach to any person, any living being on this planet, show them the facts, show them the videos, convince them, and make them go vegan. Maybe not all of them, but I think we would have enough people to, reach what we call the tipping point
right.
and convert this entire planet to go vegan, or at least stop using animals. But give me $1 million, I'll make it happen. I don't need $17 million like every welfare group gets in
Mhm.
average. Give me
Yeah.
$1 million, I'll be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it seems like the larger picture of animal liberation has just been lost in the
Yeah,
weeds of these reforms. We need identity transformation individually, culturally, collectively, and that comes from the work that we do, that we're talking about, the
yeah,
vegan education and grassroots activism. Yeah.
yeah. If I may say, one of the things I learned in my Vedanta teachings in New York, in addition to this major lesson that made me eventually change my life, there's another concept of higher desire. So basically, whenever you want human beings to change something, at least something drastic in their life, they have to find an ultimate high desire to do that. Meaning, let's say you want to lose weight, you want to exercise more. It's like New Year's resolution. If you don't have a high, strong desire behind it for what you want to do, you're not going to stick. It's not going to stick with you. It's going to fall by the wayside. You're going to give it up very soon. Only if you find, basically, it's your why. Only if you find a strong enough why, what they call higher desire, that can sustain you through making this change in your life, then you will be able to sustain it and stick with it. Only if you naturally find a stronger, higher desire for
Mm,
something else, the other desire falls away on its own. So from my higher desire was, I am not willing to inflict this pain and suffering on any living being anymore.
yeah.
And that was strong enough for the desire for meat, dairy, and eggs to really fall on its own. I don't crave these things. But until I found that higher desire, I couldn't make that change really lasting, sustainable change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's basically what we're all trying to do. All the grassroots groups, everybody we're talking about now in the animal rights sphere are trying to help people find their higher desire in different ways. And some of us try to do it through the ethical aspect. Some of us are trying to do it through the planet aspect, some through the health aspect.
Yeah.
And if the efforts are not going in that direction, if they're going into basically making people okay with keeping the lower desire, keep eat your meat, dairy, and eggs, but just feel a bit better about it. It's not going to change. This desire will stay forever. So we're
Yeah.
really talking about a kind of desire shift,
Mm-hmm.
without which lasting change will not happen. At least
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, I fully agree, and really, people will I think respond possibly to this and say, well, you can't change everyone. Not everyone's going to go vegan. Not everyone's going to go vegan. Well, we don't need actually everyone to go vegan. What we need are those early adopters, people like you and me that do care, that can have the ability, whether it's the privilege or the desire or the, courage or whatever it is, to be able to make those changes, to be able to find that higher desire, like you were talking about, and make that shift and become compassionate vegans, ethical vegans. We just need those early adopters to really swell, right?
Yeah.
And then when we get those numbers big, then the food shifts to be vegan and we go default vegan and everything starts becoming vegan, then, that's when the wave will happen and we can get everyone on board, because when you go to the store, everything's vegan. It's
Right.
whatever you buy. So we really don't need every single person on earth initially,
Right.
but we do
Hey,
need a much larger swell of early adopters. And that's what vegan education and grassroots activism will do. Yeah.
yeah, there's all these kind of social change theories coming out now, or in the past decade, talking about we just need to reach 10% of the population, 3.5%, studying other social movements, social
Yeah.
change movements. And yeah, you're not going to convince every person on the planet to change their views. But yeah, once you reach enough of the population, the ripple effect is so strong that they have to change. Even those that don't want to change, they have
Yeah.
to change because this is now the norm and the laws in their society.
Yeah.
And eventually they catch up. Yeah, the rest will be taken care of. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And these reforms, getting back to the welfare reforms and the legislative changes, these these don't address what we're talking about at
right.
all. This doesn't address that critical question of who we are. And of course, human behavior is reversible too, but it's a heck of a lot harder to
Yeah,
change once it's set in motion and once it's set into the mainstream. Legislative reforms, these bills and stuff, they are easily reversible. I don't feel that it's moving us in the right direction. I feel like we should probably wrap up because I'm sure we could talk about this all
right.
day.
Forever. Yeah.
But I do want to just say a final something about this, and just to be clear that I'm not critiquing. I don't feel that welfare and legislative reforms shouldn't exist. My critique is about what we now have decided to focus on as a
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
And we have shifted our focus to be, I feel, in excess on welfare when 95 to 98% of donated money and resources and time and jobs and energy is going towards these welfare reforms. That is excessive. That's excessive. The question should be, what should be our central and primary focus, and what should be supportive and secondary? And I think we have this really upside down.
Yeah.
Vegan education, grassroots education should be what's primary, what we centrally focus on, and then reforms should just be a supportive tool. So
Agree. Yeah.
we've got to shift this. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, yeah, like I said, also the money wise, look, it's very hard for groups like us to survive every year. It's very hard. And while that is happening in the welfare sphere, you're talking about salaries of up to 200K a year with
Yeah.
benefits and unlimited vacation, all that stuff. So we are basically unable to survive. I'm running a nonprofit without getting paid in my extra time. I'm an actor. That's my day job. That's what pays the bills, not this. And it's very hard to, all volunteers. And when we get a little money, we are able to hire a few people, but just part time, and then just part of the year. It's hard for us to survive as an organization. No, I'm not even talking about giving people a nice, decent salary for the work they do. And at the same time, there's almost over luxury on the other side. So total imbalance. And if the movement agreed on the ultimate goal, and if there was more balance of resources and money, we would win this fight. We're fighting against a huge Goliath here, the animal agriculture industry around the world. And we're trying to fight them with, most of us doing with volunteers, with no money.
Yeah, we've got to find a way to get more energy and money to the grassroots.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, so I want to take us in a different direction, and I really want to ask you about your acting career in LA. So what is that like? And something else that's interesting to me is that there seems to be so many vegan celebrities, like a lot of celebrities get it and go vegan, but that doesn't seem to translate onto the screen. We see so few vegan representations, and what we do see is often just a stereotype, or it's not a fair or realistic depiction of vegans. So I don't know if you have anything to say about any of that, but what's your experience like as an actor in LA?
Well, as you know me by now, I have to say a lot about everything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, it's kind of twofold. First, there's my experience as a working actor who's vegan on sets that are not vegan.
Mm,
So I can tell you in general, the industry is not where it should be.
mm,
I go off into the big studios, in Hollywood, like Warner Brothers, Universal. I get to work Sony, all these studios. So one small example is lunch. When you're on a working day, when you go for lunch in their cafeterias or their menzas or whatever they call it, they have restaurants on the studio lots for the employees. In some of them, it's very hard to find vegan options. And I repeatedly, when I work in those studios, I go speak to the manager. Hey, can you offer a vegan option? Can you have this? And some of them are getting better. I kind of like to think maybe I had something to do with it. So next time I visit, then we have a pasta dish, we have this, we have a vegan dessert. So that's kind of one aspect of me, kind of I'm gauging how the industry is doing. Another aspect is on
I
sets
just I
themselves.
just want to say about that. I'm honestly, that's shocking to me because LA has so much vegan food, so many
Right.
vegan restaurants, and you'd think that Hollywood would be so progressive. I'm kind of surprised. I thought that there would be a lot of vegan stuff. That's disappointing.
I know. I was surprised as well, and that's why I'm used to it everywhere I go. But that's why I make it a point. I gotta speak to the manager here. Come on, you're blah 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 brothers studio.
Uh-huh.
You have stars who are vegan coming. Okay, so the stars don't go to eat at the Menza or the studio lot restaurant. So that's maybe one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But still, yeah, this is Hollywood. This is year 2024. There's no reason why you shouldn't have some vegan options on your menu. That's one thing. Then on film sets themselves, I can tell you that I had nice surprises, nice stories, and then I had film sets that were terrible. Again,
Hmm.
I had to say, guys, I'm not working. I almost involve my agents in this. Guys, I can't work if you don't provide me with vegan food on set. I have nothing to eat here.
Wow.
I had a whole thing in a big studio. I worked on a known TV show where that was the case. The star of the show, who was a minor, a child, was vegan. I was the second vegan, and that's pretty much it. And they didn't have vegan food for us. I had to literally fight and call my agents to get involved, and they had to call the casting office that cast me. And I called the union SAG, and they got in touch with the producers. It got to the level of big producer. We had to make a big fuss over the fact that there was no food for me to eat. And that's unacceptable. Again,
Wow.
especially since the star of the show was also vegan, and they knew that ahead of time. They ask you, well, do you have any dietary restrictions? Blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of very disappointing.
Yeah.
That's literally from the kind of logistical aspect of getting vegan food while working in the industry. The other aspect is that, like you said, the depiction of vegans on in the media, in TV shows, in films.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Most of the time, it's being made fun of. You know, there's that famous scene from, I think it's Parkins Recreation, right? Where what's his name is making fun of vegan samples at a big store, bacon, like vegan bacon, throwing it to the garbage.
Yeah.
There's all these kind of, funny depictions of vegans or vegan food. But I have to say that once in a while, I'm surprised for the better. For example, there's a show called General Hospital. It's a soap that I follow just because I had many auditions for that show and because I watch it when I exercise. So it's a little distraction.
Hmm.
I kind of now, I guess I'm addicted to a soap. And they have two characters who are vegan.
Really?
Yeah, one of them, there was an episode over Thanksgiving, and he said, yeah, I'm not eating the turkey because I'm vegan. In another episode, he mentioned that he's getting a vegan pizza. And just a few days ago, a second character all of a sudden said, and it was very interesting because her mom, it's kind of a newish character on the show, and her mom is coming to visit. She's also gay, and the mom doesn't know. And the mom gives her, oh, here, I brought you these shoes. And then the character asks, but are they vegan? So
Huh.
I was blown away. So it's kind of once in a while, there's these kind of beacons of light, and you like
Yeah.
kind of think, oh wow, that's nice of them. That's progressive. But of course, it's the minority. The majority is you don't hear about it. If you do hear about it, it's being made fun of.
Yeah.
And again, it's a big paradox because a lot of stars are vegan. But you see, that's the thing. A lot of stars are vegan not because they found a higher desire, just because they think it's trendy, because they do it for health reasons. They want to lose weight. They want to da ba ba. So they're not going to be vocal about it when they go on set and there's no vegan options. They don't care. They have their own chef. Their chef makes them their vegan food. You know what I'm saying? So it's not burning in their bones like it is for us
Right.
to shift Hollywood towards being more vegan friendly.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's at least my kind of analysis of why it's still happening this way in Hollywood.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for speaking up and for, being there, being a voice, being a vegan voice there in that world so that, there'll be more options. Yeah. And I know that you have a show coming up, right? You're going to be in a show on Hulu about the Holocaust. Did you want to mention about that?
Yeah. So I am gonna have two. Hopefully, we'll see if they don't eliminate me in the editing. But I'm appearing in two episodes of the new show called "We Were the Lucky Ones." I know it's a Holocaust show, World War II, but it's actually the real story of a Jewish family that got completely separated at the beginning of the Holocaust to literally all corners of the world, from Brazil to Russia, gulags in Siberia, and everywhere else in between.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then found a way to find each other after the war and all
Mm,
survived. So it's based on a book, and that is based on a true story that happened to the family of the writer.
mm.
But yeah, it's a show coming up on Hulu at the end of March. I have a role there of actually a Polish guy who's hiding Jewish people in his house. And I gotta say, that was a nice experience because we filmed it in Romania and I had so much vegan food there. They knew ahead of time.
Really?
I told them, I mean, they really treated us well. So we had a nice hotel. I don't know if it's just because of the production or just the hotel was very kind of progressive. So they had, or it's maybe Romanian food, but they had enough vegan options for me at all times. So I didn't have to fight over my vegan food and call my agents and my union to get me vegan options over there. That was
Good.
great. And then in between, I had 2 weeks of filming. In between, I went to London and Paris and used the wonderful app Happy Cow and found all the vegan places in each one. Found even in Romania again, Bucharest, Romania, there's a vegan cat cafe. That was like my heaven. I went there like
Oh,
almost every day. It's a
oh,
vegan cafe that they have cats, rescued cats living there, and people
right.
come and have vegan food and hang out with the cats.
Oh,
So I
wonderful.
guess, yeah, I guess there is some hope. I mean, that I guess, these kind of amazing, unexpected things that you go somewhere and you don't expect, and then yeah, there's vegan options here, or there's a vegan restaurant, or vegan cat cafe, or vegan this, or vegan that, in the last place you would think anybody would be even aware of the word.
Mm.
So maybe there is hope.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the name of that show?
We were the lucky ones.
We Were the Lucky Ones. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll look for that on Hulu.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Aylam, thank you so much for being on the show. It was really wonderful to talk to you today.
Thank you. Same here. And yeah, let's do it some other time. Talk for 7 more hours.
Yeah,
All
I'd
these
love
things.
it. Thank you for listening to the Hope for the Animals podcast, a project of compassionate living. Be sure to check out the National Animal Rights Day. This year it's going to be on June 2nd. See if there's one in your area that you can participate in, or if there isn't one in your area, maybe you can start one in your area. We've got links in the show notes. So I would really love to see some new reviews on Apple Podcast for our Hope for the Animals podcast. If you listen on Apple Podcast, the app or any app really that lets you put in ratings and reviews, we could really use some fresh reviews. So please, please, please go and give us a 5-star rating and write a review. You don't have to say a lot, it doesn't have to be long, but it helps with that mysterious algorithm thingy to reach more people, which will inspire more people to make better choices, find their higher desire, like Alam was talking about, perhaps get more involved, help out with this year's National Animal Rights Day of Action, or come to our Humane Hoax Chicken webinar on May 4th and just be more awesome than they were before they listened to this podcast. And all that can happen if you help us out and give a rating and review on your podcast app. And know that you're awesome for caring, for being kind, for being compassionate. So please get involved and live vegan.